and welcome to the Digital CxO podcast. I'm Amanda Razani, and with me today is Mike Vizard. Good morning. How are you?
I'm good, assuming that it's morning by the time anybody listens to this, but all's good. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you happen to be.
Exactly. Well, we have lots of topics today. We're going to start with the Augmented World Expo, which your brother, Frank Vizard, wrote about. There was some interesting news coming out of this conference. The big one being that Apple is going to stop developing the Apple Pro headset because they're going to focus on something a little bit lighter weight and cheaper. It apparently just didn't have the appeal that they expected it to have. And then we also have Snapchat offering AI assistance to create 3D images. And Microsoft shared an AI tool for creating realistic avatars from photos. And then the coolest one, I like this one a lot, the company Sightful introduced Spacetop, which is essentially a mobile big screen glasses with a 50% field or a diagonal field of view of 50. And they say it's like you have a laptop, but that you can walk around and wear the glasses and get that field of view. So that's pretty neat.
Yeah. I feel like this whole space is kind of starting to feel like primordial soup, right? I got all these augmented reality technologies and I got all this AI stuff, and I feel like we're still waiting on a catalyst to get it right. Even Apple, which is known for its design efforts, had to essentially, go back to the drawing board a little bit, right? The original machine that they created was a little too heavy, a little too clunky, and certainly too expensive for mere mortals. So hopefully there's been advances in silicon that will let them kind of build something that will be a little more practical for a lot of folks. It may not always be for everybody, because as long as there are glasses involved, not everybody may like augmented reality, but other people may love it. And who knows, maybe we'll all be on airplanes someday with our augmented reality glasses playing some sort of video game or engaged in some sort of conference somewhere that is going to become part of our everyday lifestyle. I just don't know when, and I don't know how smart these things are. And I feel for everybody who's been kind of building stuff in this space, because every time it seems like they get started, somebody pulls the rug out from underneath them.
Yeah, well, this last one, the Spacetop, I find that interesting from a business point of view because, I know there's lots of times we're sitting in airports and we're trying to work. And sometimes I worry about the privacy of anybody being able to see my laptop. So, to just have glasses on and be able to see and interact, it's a little bit more private. So I could see a lot of business professionals utilizing this in the future.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that, the glasses are no bigger than the ones I'm wearing right now.
Yeah, exactly, which I haven't seen on. I should look up some pictures because I find that fascinating. You can find more about what was at the Augmented World Expo by looking on Digital CxO. So moving on, we have our newest writer, John Swartz. He has an article about artificial intelligence adoption and growth, hastening and deepening an alarming trend over the past few decades, which is that more of the wealth is being concentrated among fewer people, accelerating income inequality. So what are your thoughts about this one?
Yeah, I think the inequality issue's always been there. What kind of struck me about this piece, though, was how much of so many of the technology advances that we are touting in places like the Valley are somewhat premature. And there's a lot of companies getting rich off this, no doubt. But, let's say I'm in Peoria. Am I really experiencing all the things that the folks in the Valley are talking about and all those awesome things? Probably not. And as a result, there is this kind of divide starting to emerge. And some of it is folks who are kind of, shall we say, enjoying the benefits of a bubble. Not sure if that bubble is going to burst, but when they enjoy those benefits of a bubble, they put a lot of stress on their local communities that they don't realize, because those communities are not benefiting, shall we say, equally well, and trickle-down economics doesn't always work so well. And so I think you see this dichotomy that exists. And it's not just going to be within the valley. I think there's going to be a dichotomy in places like what you might experience living in Georgia versus what you're going to see in New York or San Francisco. And I think we just got to figure out how to kind of get these advances out faster to more of the population so that we can equally take advantage of these things and maybe share the wealth a little bit better. Otherwise, there's going to be, a reaction. And things, generally speaking, reactionary forces are never a good thing. So I just hope we kind of take a breath for a minute and think this through a little bit, because I think it was William Johnson or somebody like that who said, the future's here. It's just unevenly distributed, which is true. But when it's unevenly distributed, it also creates, shall we say, tensions in the system that ultimately are not helpful.
Yes, well, from my experience, I feel like it's always been the case that the trendy things, the new innovative things always seem to hit the coast areas first, or New York, California, and it takes a little while to integrate in the middle. And I think that's everywhere. Things hit bigger cities, of course, more often, and it just takes a while to get widespread.
Yeah, but even in those big cities, not everybody benefits equally well. So it's the nature of capitalism. I get that, but there are advances that come along once a decade, like AI, that maybe we need to think it through a little bit more, because the traditional methods for distributing emerging and new technologies may not work as well for this one.
Yeah, absolutely. So moving on, I had a recent interview with Anoop Rege of Zenzar, and he was talking about customer service and implementing technology. And he says, when it comes to technology implementation to improve service, companies need to break down silos and be able to embrace change and be adaptable. It's an issue he sees business leaders dealing with. And then he talked about their approach to AI as part of a buddy system where AI helps individuals with their tasks, helps them perform their jobs. And then he also talked about the triple E approach, bringing together experience, engineering, and engagement, integrating core capabilities for seamless data feedback, essentially, again, breaking down silos. And we talk about this a lot. So what are your thoughts?
Here's the thing. People, despite all our advances in digital transformation, AI and bots and all these other technologies, people still remark and talk to each other when they had a great customer service experience. It's actually something they will share and talk to their friends about. The fact that that exists tells you how bad customer service really is. Because the fact that anybody had to call it out for a minute there was as a unique experience tells me that the bulk of the experiences are either somewhere between mediocre and horrible. And I think we're better than that. And it's kind of sad that after all these years, that we're still not really moved the needle here. And turnover rates in customer service organizations are as high, maybe even higher than ever. Expectations of what the value proposition of those things was like someday customer service people would be able to upsell customers on new capabilities because they provided a great customer experience. Well, nobody's having a great customer experience. It's really hard to upsell somebody when they're still mad about something. So, I just feel like this whole space is not left up to our expectations and is one of those areas where maybe we should double down a little bit, because it's one of the core promises of technology and has been forever. And I think a lot of people, especially outside of tech, are a little like, you know what, you guys are kind of making stuff up.
Well, we talk about utilizing data to understand and improve customer service, but honestly, it's behind the scenes, the company culture, company staffing issues, business processes all play a big part of being able to offer good customer service. And like you said, customers also are just expecting a lot more these days. And so, their expectations levels are higher in general.
I just want a simple thing, right? if I send you an email about something, it doesn't necessarily always mean I want an email back to discuss it. It may be that you should call me, and you have all that stuff, and you have this multi-channel, omni-channel reach, and you sure as heck know how to use it when you want to reach me. But, somehow or other, when it comes to customer service and that issue, you can't figure out how to navigate these multiple mediums that, you've seen me engage you with before, whether it's on my phone, text, email, whatever it may be. Or, if you want to invite me to a video conference, that might be awesome. But instead, it's just a hodgepodge of, the outbound stuff is highly orchestrated, and anything that involves inbound is a mess. Now, is that because you're not really invested in customer service because you view it as a cost? Probably. If that's your business model, then, people are going to figure that out soon and go somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, no matter how much you implement technology, that human interaction is still key. And I know I don't like when I have a problem trying to call and I just want to talk to somebody in person really quick about it. And I have to go through 50 million buttons and choices and get fielded 3 million times before I can talk to somebody.
Yeah. Did you get the feeling that somebody was deliberately putting up a bunch of gates hoping you go away?
Yes, exactly. Yes. So it's still an issue to be worked out. Mm-hmm. Moving on. So you shared an article about the trouble with internet. A recent survey of 310 IT or digital business leaders published by Catchpoint finds 43% have experienced internet performance degradations, which has resulted in revenue losses exceeding $1 million.
Yeah, so in some cases, for I think 9% or something like that, it was well over $1 million. I think this is a flaw in the system. We are building all these wonderful digital services, and the reliability of the transport mechanism that we're using to deliver these things is still shaky. And people are constantly running into issues. Why, just before you and I got on this podcast, though, wireless network kicked out for 3 seconds and we had to start over again. That isn't a material financial loss, but if you're building a digital service and it's dependent upon the internet connectivity being there, well, it turns out that most of that connectivity is based on network upon network upon network service that have tons of dependencies on each other. And the probability that all of those services are optimally running, if even available, is low. And it gets lower still in places where, there's not a lot of people living. So, the experience you may have is in Mississippi may be dramatically different than what you're going to see in California or New York. And these things need to be addressed because we can't build the next era of an AI-driven augmented reality on shaky internet.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I don't know exactly what the solution is, but I will say we were recently on a cruise and I had fantastic internet. I was worried about it, but I paid for the internet package and they were utilizing the Starlink satellite internet and I had no trouble at all.
All right. Well, that's Elon Musk and his cruise. So maybe that's just it. We just need new carriers because the existing carriers, maybe they just got too much junk in the network and, all these overlays on top of virtual overlays is just killing them.
Yep. So work in progress there as well. Moving on, we have, this is an article about, from Christopher Laughlin about the idea of future proofing being outdated. He says it's outdated. The problem with the process is treated as tweaking a technology or an approach until it reaches an ideal state. But simply put, it doesn't work because the future is too unpredictable. It's always changing. Future readiness, however, is fluid, continual, driven, and intentional. It's a willingness to take a skeptical position on trends and be a little bit more prepared.
Yeah, I mean, I really like this article. And the reason I like it is it's more about a philosophy as much as it is anything else in terms of hardcore technical advice. But it's just something that business leaders and IT leaders need to have a chat about. It's kind of like, so much of what we're now currently doing per our previous conversation, but it also applies to compute infrastructure and everything else that we're doing, is not designed to run the next greatest thing that we're building. And yet we go out and we build these next greatest things, and then the performance isn't what we thought it was going to be, largely because we're trying to run it on old hardware. Sometimes, the cloud service providers probably do a better job of continually upgrading the experience, and there's a benefit there, but that will come at a cost. But so much of what we have on premise is stuff that somebody bought under a capital expense budget 3 years ago, and now they're still trying to sweat. Meanwhile, Joe developer is out there trying to build this awesome microservice-based application that has like all kinds of interesting dependencies that hopefully will make that application more resilient on top of stuff that, just isn't up to the task. So I think we need to have a real conversation about what we're giving folks, what the expectations are, and how we're going to actually make the infrastructure available to people building the next great thing. Because right now, it's not there.
Yeah, and as we've seen, technology is constantly evolving, and as you said, it's a philosophy in general. Everything is always changing. You have to realize that and be prepared.
Yeah, I think we have some sort of 1980s notion of infrastructure that we're trying to apply to a modern era where it's just outdated.
Absolutely. And last on our list, but not least, is a story about manufacturing over on Digital CxO. This is from George Holm, and he says, unlike other industry verticals such as finance, retail, and technology, which have historically been more effectively used data and data analytics to optimize their businesses, manufacturing has traditionally been a laggard in this area. However, a recently released survey shows that could change. Manufacturers are awash in an abundance of data.
Yeah, I think they're starting to figure it out. They have all the right data, and most of those systems that they're using are, shall we say, closed loop, which makes it easier to have an understanding of how to automate them. I mean, they're not perfect. Exceptions happen, and there's a lot of effort to try to mass customize manufacturing for different products and use cases. But this is one industry where they're probably in a better position to take advantage of the next great AI capabilities because they may not have all their data in order, but they have a better handle of what data they have and how it relates to each other than most. Maybe not every manufacturing company, but certainly the big ones, and anybody using robotics is probably pretty far down the path. So I think we're going to see some awesome things on the manufacturing front in the near future because of advances in big data and AI and all this other stuff. And we may get to the point where ultimately today, a lot of manufacturing happens halfway around the globe from where the point of consumption of the thing being manufactured is. Well, let's start thinking that through for a minute. Can we get to the point now where the cost of building a plant somewhere closer to the point where the thing being built is actually going to be consumed, so I can reduce the transportation costs of the thing that I have to bring halfway around the world becomes an interesting conversation. So I think this data conversation is the beginning of something. And so it's heartening to see in George's story here that, people are finally thinking about it at least.
Yes. And as you mentioned too, with utilizing AI to, analyze all that data so much faster, it's really going to help.
Right. And beyond that, gets us out of this problem we're seeing with political climates around the world that are impacting businesses. If there's tensions between governments, suddenly my manufacturing line is at risk over somebody having an argument about something that has nothing to do with me per se. I just happen to be in that country as a business. Businesses theoretically should have a lot more flexibility, and as circumstances change, they should be able to move manufacturing more adroitly to ensure that whatever it is they're doing is not disrupted by some argument that, again, they didn't start.
Absolutely. Well, that brings us to the end of our list today. Again, all of these are on digitalcxo.com. Do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, this is probably one of the greatest times for tech ever in my memory. I mean, there's more awesome stuff floating around than I can think about. And there's no shortage of things to innovate. And digital CxOs have all kinds of opportunities. But there's always like some little hidden thing that's holding something up. And so digital CxO's got to have a keen understanding of where the dependencies are, because those issues ultimately will determine, what winds up being just a science project versus something that actually delivers a result for the business.
Yes, there's a lot more involved these days in the role of digital CxO.
There you go. Sure. Cool job.
All right. Well, thank you to our audience for watching this episode. If you missed last week's, it's there for you to catch up, and go check out any of the articles that were of interest, and you can read all the information there. And have a great day.
We'll see you next time.